I didn't plan to survive that night. The automatic doors slid open with a soft hiss, and the smell of antiseptic hit me before the light did, too bright, too clean, too unforgiving for someone like me to walk into alone. My shoes left faint marks on the polished floor, damp from the rain outside, each step slower than the last as if my body had already decided it was done trying. I remember thinking how quiet it was for a place that was supposed to save people. No one rushed toward me. No one asked questions. I wrapped my arms around myself, not because I was cold, but because it felt like the only thing holding me together. "I need help," I said, or at least I think I did. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded distant, like it belonged to someone standing a few feet behind me. The woman at the front desk looked up, her expression shifting from routine to something sharper, more alert. She stood quickly, heels clicking against the tile, calling for a nurse, and suddenly everything moved faster than I could follow. Hands reached for me, guiding me onto a gurney, voices overlapping in fragments I couldn't piece together. "Pulse is weak. Stay with me. What's your name?" "Emily." I tried to say it. I tried to remember it. But the word got lost somewhere between my throat and the air. The ceiling lights passed above me in long, blinding strips as they wheeled me down the hallway, each one flickering like a countdown I didn't understand. My fingers twitched against the thin blanket, searching for something solid, something real, but there was nothing to hold on to. Just motion. Just noise. Just the growing certainty that I had made it here just in time, or maybe already too late. Someone asked if I had family. Someone else asked for an emergency contact. I shook my head, or maybe I didn't. It didn't matter. There was no one coming. I had walked in alone, and that was how it was supposed to end. Then everything slowed. Not the movement, not the voices, but the feeling. Like the air itself had shifted. The nurse nearest to me glanced at a screen, her brows pulling together, confusion flickering across her face. "That can't be right," she whispered, but I heard it. I heard everything now, even the things they didn't mean for me to hear. She picked up the phone, hesitated for half a second too long, then dialed. "Yes, we need him here. Now." A pause. Her posture straightened, her tone changing instantly, like she had just stepped into a different world. "It's about her. Her. Not a name. Not a patient. Just, her." I wanted to ask what she meant, who she was calling, why her voice sounded like that, tight, controlled, almost afraid. But my lips wouldn't move. My body wouldn't listen anymore. The hallway lights blurred into one long streak above me as they pushed me through another set of doors, and for a moment, everything went quiet again. Not peaceful. Not calm. Just empty. And then I heard it. Not from the room. Not from the staff. But from somewhere deeper, heavier, like a shadow moving before the man who cast it. A name. Low. Certain. Spoken with a kind of weight that made the air feel smaller. Victor Moretti. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know why they called him. But something in the way the room shifted, something in the way everyone suddenly moved faster, spoke softer, stood straighter, told me one thing I couldn't explain. I hadn't just walked into a hospital that night. I had walked into his world. And he was already on his way. The room felt different the moment they said his name. It was not loud or dramatic, just a shift so subtle it should have been easy to miss, but I felt it anyway, like a change in pressure before a storm. The nurse who had been adjusting the monitors straightened her back, her hands suddenly more precise, more careful, as if every movement now mattered more than it had a second ago. Another doctor stepped in, older, sharper, his voice lower as he asked for updates, but no one answered casually anymore. Every word was measured. Every second counted differently now. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to hold on to the light above me as it blurred at the edges. My body felt heavy, like it was sinking into the bed, like gravity had decided I was no longer worth the effort of holding up. "Stay with us, Emily," someone said, and the fact that they used my name startled me. I did not remember telling them. I did not remember much of anything except the sound of that name echoing in my own head, distant and fragile. My fingers twitched again, weaker this time, and I focused on that small movement like it was the only proof I still existed. Somewhere beyond the curtain, I heard hurried footsteps, not the rushed panic from before, but something more controlled, more deliberate. Shoes that did not squeak against the floor. Voices that did not rise in urgency. The kind of movement that made other people step out of the way without being asked. The curtain shifted slightly as someone passed, and even without seeing him, I knew. The air changed again, heavier now, charged with something I could not name but could not ignore. No one said anything for a moment. Not a greeting. Not a question. Just silence, the kind that demanded attention without asking for it. Then a voice, deep and steady, cut through the room. "How long has she been like this?" It was not loud, but it carried, filling every corner of the space without effort. The doctor answered quickly, his tone respectful in a way that felt different from before. "She arrived approximately 15 minutes ago. Severe exhaustion, possible internal complications. We are still assessing." A pause followed, brief but sharp, like a line drawn between what was acceptable and what was not. "Assess faster," the voice said, calm but final, leaving no room for hesitation. I tried to turn my head toward it, to see the man they had called, but my body refused. All I could do was listen, my breath shallow, my thoughts slipping in and out like waves I could not control. Footsteps moved closer, slower now, until they stopped right beside me. I felt it before I saw it, that presence, steady and unyielding, like something that had always been there, waiting. A hand did not touch me, but it hovered close enough that I could feel the warmth, the awareness of it sending a strange, unfamiliar sense of safety through the fear still wrapped around my chest. "Emily," he said, and this time it sounded different, not like a question, not like a guess, but like he already knew. Like he had known long before I walked through those doors. I forced my eyes open just enough to catch a glimpse, a blur of dark fabric, a silhouette framed by the harsh hospital light, but it was his eyes that held me, sharp and focused, carrying something deeper than concern. Recognition. That was the only word I could find for it, even though it made no sense. I had never seen this man before. I was sure of that. And yet, the way he looked at me made my chest tighten in a way that had nothing to do with pain. "I do not know you," I managed to whisper, the words barely leaving my lips, fragile and uncertain. For a second, nothing changed. No reaction. No correction. Just that steady gaze, unwavering, as if my words meant nothing compared to whatever he saw when he looked at me. Then, quietly, almost to himself, he said, "No, but I know exactly why you are here." And somehow, that was more terrifying than anything else. I should have lost consciousness right then. My body was already giving up, slipping further away with every shallow breath, but something in his voice held me there, just enough to keep me from disappearing completely. The room moved around us again, faster now, more urgent, but it felt distant, like I was underwater and everything else was happening on the surface. "We need imaging. Full panel. Now," the doctor said, his tone tight but controlled, and this time no one hesitated. Orders were repeated instantly. Equipment shifted. A machine was rolled closer to my bed, its soft hum blending into the rhythm of my fading awareness. And through it all, he did not move. Victor Moretti stood beside me like he had every right to be there, like the entire room belonged to him, like every decision being made was already his before anyone spoke it out loud. I tried to understand it, tried to make sense of why a man like him would be here, why they had called him instead of anyone else, but my thoughts would not stay together long enough to form an answer. My hand slipped slightly against the thin hospital sheet, and before I even realized what I was doing, my fingers reached out, searching again for something real. This time, they found it. His hand was there, steady, warm, not pulling away. For a second, I thought I imagined it, but then his grip adjusted, firm enough to ground me, gentle enough not to frighten me. It did not make sense. Nothing about this made sense. "Do not let her lose consciousness," he said, his voice lower now, closer, directed at the people around us but somehow meant for me. "Keep her awake." A nurse leaned in, her face soft but focused. "Emily, stay with me, okay? Can you hear me?" I wanted to answer. I really did. But the only thing that came out was a faint breath, uneven and fragile. My eyes fluttered, struggling to stay open, and when I looked at him again, something shifted inside my chest. It was not fear. Not exactly. It was something deeper, something unfamiliar, like my body recognized something my mind could not explain. His gaze had not softened, but it had changed. Less distant. More certain. Like he had already decided something about me that I had not yet understood. "Why, are you here?" I managed to whisper, the words barely audible, each one taking more effort than the last. For the first time, he did not answer immediately. His eyes searched my face, not quickly, not impatiently, but carefully, like he was looking for something specific, something only he would recognize. The silence stretched just long enough to make my heart tighten. Then, finally, he spoke. "Because you were never supposed to walk in alone." The word settled into the space between us, quiet but heavy, carrying a meaning I could not fully grasp but could not ignore. A nurse interrupted, her voice urgent but controlled. "Sir, we need to move her. Now." He did not look away from me when he responded. "Then move her," he said. "And make sure nothing goes wrong." There was no hesitation. No argument. Just immediate action. The bed shifted beneath me as they began to wheel me out of the room, the ceiling lights once again sliding past in a blur above my head. But this time, something was different. His hand did not leave mine. Not when they turned the corner. Not when the doors opened ahead of us. Not even when the hallway grew colder, quieter, more sterile than before. I should have been afraid. I should have pulled away. But I did not. Because for the first time since I stepped into that hospital, I did not feel like I was disappearing anymore. And somehow, without understanding why, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever was happening to me, he was not going to let it end here. The hallway felt colder the farther they pushed me, like the hospital itself had layers and I was being taken somewhere deeper, somewhere quieter, somewhere fewer people were allowed to go. The lights above were dimmer here, softer, but they did nothing to ease the tightness in my chest. The wheels beneath me moved in a steady rhythm, controlled, deliberate, and I could hear footsteps beside us that did not match the pace of the medical staff. He had not let go. Not once. Not even when the doors ahead required clearance, when a nurse reached forward to swipe a card and the lock released with a soft click. The moment we passed through, everything changed again. Fewer voices. Fewer people. More space between each sound. It felt less like a hospital and more like a place designed to keep things contained. "VIP wing," someone whispered behind us, not meant for me, but I heard it anyway. Of course it was. That explained the silence. That explained the way no one questioned him. That explained why every person we passed stepped aside before we even reached them. My fingers tightened weakly around his hand, the motion small but enough for him to notice. His grip adjusted immediately, steadying me again without hesitation. "Stay awake," he said, quieter now, not commanding, not distant, but close. Too close. Like the words were meant only for me. I tried to focus on his voice, to hold on to it the way I had held on to the light before, but my thoughts kept slipping, sliding between clarity and confusion. "I do not belong here," I whispered, each word dragging behind the last. It felt important to say it. It felt like the only thing that still made sense. For a moment, there was no response. Just the sound of movement, the turning of a corner, the soft hum of machines waiting ahead. Then his voice came again, calm and certain. You do now. The simplicity of it should have scared me. It should have made me pull away, question him, demand answers I did not have the strength to ask. But instead, it settled into something deeper, something I could not name. The bed slowed as they entered a new room, larger than the others, quieter, filled with equipment that looked newer, more precise, like it had been waiting for someone specific. For me. Hands moved quickly again, adjusting monitors, positioning equipment, voices low but efficient. We are ready, a doctor said, glancing toward him instead of the team. Always toward him. Victor did not answer right away. I felt his hand shift slightly, and then, for the first time, he let go. The absence was immediate, sharp in a way I had not expected, like something essential had been taken without warning. My fingers curled instinctively, searching again, but found only the empty sheet beneath them. Panic flickered, brief but real. Do not, I started, but the word broke apart before I could finish. He noticed. Of course he did. He stepped closer again, just enough that I could see him when I forced my eyes open. The same controlled expression. The same unreadable gaze. But there was something else there now, something quieter, almost hidden beneath everything else. I am not leaving, he said, not as a reassurance, but as a fact. And somehow, that was enough. The machines began to hum louder, the room shifting into motion around me, but my focus stayed on him. On the way he stood, unmoving while everything else changed. On the way no one questioned his presence. On the way he looked at me like I was not a stranger, even though I knew I should have been. My breathing slowed, uneven but steady enough to hold on a little longer. And just before the world began to fade again, one thought pushed through the haze, clearer than anything else. I did not know who Victor Moretti was. But somehow, he knew exactly who I was supposed to be. The machine spoke in quiet rhythms I could not understand, soft beeps and steady pulses that filled the room like a language my body was slowly forgetting how to answer. My eyes drifted closed, then open again, each time harder than before, like lifting something heavier than I should have been able to carry. The ceiling above me blurred into pale light, and for a moment, I thought I had already slipped away. But then I heard his voice again, low and controlled, anchoring me back into the moment. What do you need? He asked, not to me, but to the doctor standing at the foot of the bed. The response came quickly, precise and careful. We need to stabilize her first. She is running out of time. There was a pause, brief but heavy, and I felt it even without seeing it. Then you stabilize her, Victor said, his tone unchanged, but something underneath it tightened, something sharper, something that made the room hold its breath without realizing it. You have everything you need. Use it. The doctor nodded immediately, turning back to the team, issuing instructions that came faster now, more certain, like hesitation was no longer an option. I wanted to follow their words, to understand what they were doing, but my thoughts kept slipping through my fingers like water. The edges of the room softened, sound stretching and fading, until only one thing stayed clear. Him. I forced my head to turn slightly, just enough to see where he stood. He had not moved far. Close enough to watch everything. Close enough to see me. Always watching. My chest tightened again, not from pain, but from something else I could not explain. Why? My voice barely existed, a fragile thread that threatened to disappear before it reached him. Why me? The question felt heavier than it should have, like it carried something deeper than simple confusion. For a second, he did not respond. His gaze did not shift, did not soften, but it changed in a way I could feel more than see. Like something inside him had already answered that question long before I asked it. He stepped closer, just enough that the distance between us disappeared again. Not touching. Not yet. But near enough that I could feel the weight of his presence, steady and unshakable. "Because you walked into the wrong place," he said quietly. The words should have been simple. They should have been easy to understand. But they were not. They carried something else, something unspoken, something that made my heart stutter in a way. The machines beside me immediately noticed. A sharper sound cut through the steady rhythm, and hands moved quickly again, adjusting, correcting, pulling me back from wherever I had started to fall. "Stay with us," the nurse urged, her voice closer now, more urgent. I tried. I really did. I held on to the sound of her voice, to the light above me, to the feeling of the bed beneath me. But none of it was strong enough. Only one thing was. My eyes found him again, through the blur, through the fading edges of everything else. "I do not understand," I whispered, the words breaking apart as they left me. This time, he did not hesitate. "You will," he said. Not a promise. Not a comfort. A certainty. The kind that did not ask for belief. The kind that simply existed whether I was ready for it or not. The machine steadied again, the sharp sound fading back into a controlled rhythm, but the exhaustion hit harder this time, heavier, pulling me down with a force I could not fight anymore. My fingers moved again, weaker now, searching without thinking. And just before everything slipped too far, before the room disappeared completely, I felt it. His hand. Closing around mine again. Firm. Certain. Unyielding. "You are not disappearing," he said, his voice closer than before, quieter, but stronger than anything else in that room. And even as the darkness crept in at the edges of my vision, even as everything else faded, that was the one thing that stayed. Not the fear. Not the confusion. Just that. The certainty that somehow, impossibly, he had already decided I was not allowed to be lost. The darkness did not come all at once. It moved slowly, like a tide pulling back before it returned stronger, deeper, harder to resist. I could feel it at the edges of my thoughts, creeping in, soft and quiet, waiting for the moment I stopped fighting. The machines around me continued their steady rhythm, but even that began to sound distant, like it belonged to a world I was no longer fully part of. I tried to hold on. I focused on the pressure of his hand around mine, on the warmth that refused to fade, on the single point of certainty in a room full of things I could not understand. Emily. My name again. This time closer. Sharper. It cut through the haze just enough to pull me back for another breath. My eyes opened slightly, the light above me too bright, forcing me to blink against it. Shapes moved around me, blurred and indistinct, but one figure stayed clear. Him. Still there. Still watching. Always watching. "She is slipping," someone said, their voice tight, controlled but urgent in a way that made the air feel thinner. "Then do not let her," Victor replied, just as controlled, but there was something else beneath it now, something that had not been there before. Not fear. Not panic. Something colder. Something that did not accept failure as an outcome. Hands moved again, faster this time, adjusting, correcting, bringing me back from the edge I kept drifting toward. A cool sensation spread through my arm, followed by a strange heaviness that settled into my chest. My breathing changed, uneven at first, then slowly finding a rhythm that felt almost steady. Almost. "Stay with me," the nurse said again, her voice softer now, like she was trying to meet me where I was instead of pulling me back too quickly. "Can you hear me?" I wanted to nod. I wanted to say yes. But my body still felt like it belonged to someone else, distant and unresponsive. The only thing that reacted was my hand, tightening faintly around his. It was enough. I felt his grip shift again, not pulling away, not loosening, just adjusting to match me, like he had been waiting for that response. Like he knew I would give it. "That is it," he said quietly, and for the first time, there was something in his voice that did not belong to authority or control. Something softer. Not for anyone else. Just for me. The room steadied. The sharp edge of urgency eased, replaced by a quieter focus, a careful watch instead of a desperate rush. I could feel it in the way people moved, in the way their voices lowered, in the way no one looked away from me now. I was no longer slipping. Not as quickly. Not as easily. "Vitals are stabilizing," the doctor said after a moment, the tension in his voice easing just enough to notice. "She is responding." A breath I did not know I was holding. Finally released, slow and shallow, but real. My chest rose, then fell, the motion small but steady. For the first time since I walked into that hospital, it did not feel like my body was giving up. It felt like it was trying to stay. I turned my head slightly, the movement weak but intentional, until my eyes found him again. He had not moved. Not even a step. His posture was the same. His expression was the same. But something in his eyes had shifted. Not softer. Not warmer. Just, certain. Like something had just been confirmed. "You see," he said, his voice low enough that no one else would hear it. "I told you." I did not remember what he had told me. Not exactly. But somehow, it still felt familiar. Like something I had heard before, even if I could not place when or where. My lips parted slightly, the effort still too much, but I tried anyway. "Who are you?" The question came out broken, fragile, but it was there. Real. This time, he did not look away. Did not hesitate. Did not deflect. He held my gaze, steady and unyielding, like the answer was not something he needed to search for. "I am the reason you are still here," he said simply. And for the first time since everything began, I believed him. The room did not feel as heavy anymore, but it did not feel normal either. It felt watched. Not by the doctors or the nurses moving carefully around me, adjusting lines, checking monitors, speaking in low, measured voices. It felt watched by something beyond them, something that had already decided how this would end. I could feel it in the way no one raised their voice, in the way every movement seemed quieter when he stood there, like even sound itself respected his presence. My breathing steadied, still shallow but no longer slipping away from me, each inhale a little stronger than the last. It hurt, not sharply, not in a way I could point to, but like my body was remembering how to exist again and did not quite know how to do it smoothly. I swallowed slowly, my throat dry, my thoughts beginning to gather into something clearer. Not fully. Not yet. But enough to notice things I had missed before. The room. The equipment. The people. And him. Victor. Moretti had not stepped back. Not even a foot. He stood exactly where he had been, as if moving was unnecessary, as if everything that needed to happen would simply happen around him. My eyes lingered on him longer this time, trying to understand what I had felt earlier, that strange pull, that recognition that made no sense. He was older than I had first realized. Not just older in years, but in presence, in the way he carried himself like time had shaped him into something solid, something unbreakable. 65, they had said. And yet there was nothing fragile about him. Nothing uncertain. Only control. Only certainty. Only intention. "She is stabilizing," the doctor repeated, more confidently now, glancing toward Victor as if waiting for something. Approval. Permission. I did not know. Victor gave a small nod, almost imperceptible, but it was enough. The room shifted again, the tension easing just slightly, like a decision had been made that no one else was allowed to question. I shifted my hand again, slower this time, testing the strength that had begun to return. My fingers moved against his, not searching now, but aware. He noticed immediately. Of course he did. His gaze dropped briefly to where our hands met, then returned to my face, sharper than before, more focused. "You are coming back," he said, not asking, not hoping. Stating it like a fact that had already been decided. I let out a breath I did not realize I was holding, the sound soft but real, and for the first time, I felt something close to awareness settle in my chest. Not fear. Not confusion. Something quieter. Something that almost felt like safety. It should not have. Nothing about this situation made sense. Nothing about him should have felt safe. And yet, it did. "You said," I started, my voice still weak but steadier than before, "you know why I am here." The words came slowly, each one placed carefully, like I was afraid they would fall apart if I moved too quickly. This time, he did not look away. Did not deflect. Did not change the subject. But he did not answer right away either. His silence was different from before. Not avoidance. Consideration. Like he was deciding how much I was ready to hear. Or how much he was willing to give. The seconds stretched, quiet and heavy, until finally, he spoke. "You came to the only place you would be found," he said. The answer did not make sense. Not completely. But it felt like it mattered. Like it was part of something larger I could not see yet. My brow furrowed slightly, the motion small but enough to make him notice. "Found, by you?" I asked, the question barely more than a breath. His expression did not change, but something in his eyes sharpened, like I had stepped closer to something important without realizing it. "Yes," he said simply. No hesitation. No doubt. Just certainty. The word settled over me, heavy and quiet, carrying more weight than it should have. Because it meant one thing I could not ignore anymore. This was not an accident. Not my arrival. Not his presence. Not the way everything had shifted the moment they said his name. I had walked into that hospital alone. But somehow, I had walked exactly where he expected me to be. The silence did not last. It never did in places like this. It only changed shape, shifting from one kind of tension to another, and this time it came from somewhere beyond the room. A subtle movement. A door opening farther down the hall. Footsteps that did not belong to doctors or nurses. I felt it before I heard it, the same way I had felt him before I saw him. Something was off. The nurse closest to me paused for half a second, her eyes flicking toward the door, then back to the monitors like she had trained herself not to react. But I saw it. The hesitation. The awareness. Victor saw it too. Of course he did. His posture did not change, but the air around him did, tightening in a way that made my chest feel smaller again. His gaze shifted away from me for the first time, not far, just enough to glance toward the entrance of the room. That was all it took. The man near the door, dressed in a dark suit that did not belong to hospital staff, gave the smallest nod. It was silent. Quick. But it carried meaning. Something had arrived. Or someone. My fingers tightened instinctively around his again, not out of fear, not exactly, but out of something deeper, something my body recognized before my mind could catch up. He noticed immediately. He always did. His attention returned to me, sharper now, more focused, but there was something else layered beneath it. Calculation. "What is it?" I whispered, my voice still weak but clearer than before. He did not answer right away. Instead, he leaned slightly closer, just enough that his voice would not carry beyond me. "Nothing that concerns you," he said quietly. It should have reassured me. It should have ended the question. But it did not. Because everything about this already concerned me. Everything about him already involved me. I swallowed slowly, gathering what little strength I had. "You said I was found," I continued, forcing the words out before I lost the courage to ask. Then what was I hiding from? That made him pause. Not long. Not enough for anyone else to notice. But I felt it. The smallest shift in his breathing. The slightest tightening in his grip. Something about that question mattered. Something about it touched a line I was not supposed to see. The room continued moving around us, steady and controlled, but the focus between us sharpened, narrowing until nothing else felt as important. "You are asking the wrong question," he said finally. His voice was calm. Measured. But there was something underneath it now, something darker, something that did not belong to comfort or protection. "Then what is the right one?" I asked, my heart picking up a rhythm the machines immediately tracked. He held my gaze, unblinking, like he was deciding something again. Like every answer had a cost, and he was choosing which one I could afford to hear. "Who knew you would come here?" he said. The words landed differently. Heavier. Colder. And for the first time since I had opened my eyes, a chill moved through me that had nothing to do with the room. Because that question. I did not have an answer for it. I had come alone. I was sure of that. I had not told anyone. Had not called anyone. Had not. The thought stopped before it could finish. Because something did not feel right. Something in my memory shifted, just slightly, like a piece that did not fit where I thought it belonged. My breath caught, the movement small but enough for him to notice again. "You see it," he said quietly, not asking, not surprised. "You feel it." I did not respond. I could not. Because whatever I was starting to remember, it did not feel like an accident anymore. It felt like something I had been pushed toward. Something I had been led into. The footsteps outside the room moved again, closer this time, slower, more deliberate. And Victor did not look away from me when he spoke next. "It does not matter," he said, his voice steady, final. "They are too late." The certainty in his tone should have reassured me. It should have made me feel safe again. But it did not. Because for the first time, I realized something I could not ignore. He was not just protecting me from something. He was already expecting it. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. Not rushed. Not uncertain. Just there, like whoever stood on the other side already knew exactly where to be. The air in the room tightened again, subtle but unmistakable, and this time even the machines seemed quieter, like they were waiting too. My breath caught in my chest, not because I could not breathe, but because something deeper inside me recognized the moment before it happened. The nurse near the door glanced up, just for a second, and that was enough. Victor moved. Not fast. Not abruptly. Just a single step forward, placing himself between me and the entrance without looking like he had done anything at all. But I felt it. The shift. The line drawn. My fingers tightened around his again, stronger this time, no longer searching but holding on. He did not look down, did not acknowledge it, but his hand adjusted around mine in response, steady and certain. The door opened. No dramatic sound. Just a quiet click and the soft swing inward. A man stood there, dressed like the one from earlier, composed, controlled, but different in a way I could not immediately explain. His eyes moved quickly, taking in the room, the staff, the equipment, and then they stopped. On me. It lasted less than a second, but it was enough. I felt it like a ripple under my skin, something familiar. And wrong at the same time. Victor did not turn fully, but his presence shifted again, heavier now, more deliberate. "You are late," he said, his voice calm, almost conversational, but there was no warmth in it. The man at the door did not step further inside. He did not argue. He did not explain. He simply nodded once, like that was all that needed to be said. "We were not certain," the man replied, his tone careful, measured in a way that made it clear he understood exactly who he was speaking to. Victor's gaze did not leave him. "I was," he said. The words settled into the room like a final decision, quiet but absolute. No one else spoke. No one else moved. Even the staff seemed to understand that whatever this was, it was not their place to interrupt. My heart picked up again, the monitor beside me echoing the rhythm in soft, steady beeps that suddenly felt too loud in the silence. I forced myself to look past Victor, to look at the man in the doorway again, to understand why his presence felt so wrong. Something in my chest tightened, not from fear this time, but from recognition I could not fully reach. Like a memory just out of focus, something I had seen before but could not place. "Do you know him?" Victor asked quietly, and this time the question was for me. Not the room. Not the staff. Just me. I hesitated. Not because I wanted to, but because the answer would not come cleanly. It flickered. Shifted. Slipped away the moment I tried to hold it. I do not know, I whispered, but even as I said it, I felt the uncertainty in my own voice. Victor noticed. Of course he did. He always did. His gaze returned to me, sharp and searching, not for the answer I gave, but for the one I could not. "That is enough," he said softly, and this time it sounded less like a response and more like a conclusion. He turned his attention back to the man at the door, the calm in his posture settling into something final, something that did not invite further discussion. "She stays," he said. 3 simple words. No explanation. No justification. Just a statement that carried the weight of everything that had happened since I walked in. The man at the door held his gaze for a second longer, then nodded again, slower this time, like he understood the line that had just been drawn and had no intention of crossing it. He stepped back. The door closed. And just like that, the tension shifted again, not gone, but contained. I let out a breath I did not realize I had been holding, my body sinking slightly into the bed as the room returned to its quiet rhythm. But nothing felt the same anymore. Because now I understood something I had not before. This was never just about me needing help. This was never just about him protecting me. This was about something larger. Something that had already been set in motion long before I arrived. My eyes drifted back to him, to the way he stood there, unmoved, certain, like everything was unfolding exactly as he expected. "You knew," I whispered, the realization settling slowly but firmly into place. His gaze met mine, steady and unshaken. "Yes," he said. Just that. No hesitation. No denial. And somehow, that single word carried more truth than anything else he had said. Because it meant one thing I could no longer ignore. I had not just been found that night. I had been waited for.